Okay, howdy, and welcome to our intercropping webinar. Again, as per usual, an excellent set of panelists. So we got an interesting twist with the questions tonight. So what I want the attendees for the winner of the jacket. So the attendees, what we want you to do is, if you've had an intercropping idea, put the intercropping idea in the Q&A box. And I got Trav beside me here. We're going to go through them, figure out kind of the most popular ones. So intercropping idea, and then maybe just a line about what the goal would be. At the end, when we come to question time, we'll have the panelists and myself discuss some different ideas that you guys threw out. And anyway, we'll give a jacket to the most interesting one. Maybe it's not the best one, but so that's questions in the Q&A and not the chat. So let's get into it. So I'm just going to do my usual quick spiel, just kind of based on concept, why we are talking intercropping, why it's important, why it can be used on the farm to reduce risk, and most importantly, increase profitability. So there are of course many benefits, but from a strict dollars and cents point, from easy rate of return, reduction of nitrogen is probably the first and most important factor with intercropping. Reduce nitrogen by utilizing rhizobium bacteria, the mycorrhizal fungal network, and the decay and decomposition of the legume roots and shoots can be shared with the cereal plant. And of course, the cereal plant is exuding root exudates that are breaking down all sorts of minerals and being transferred from plant to plant with our amazing friend, mycorrhizal fungi. So not only is in this webinar tonight about a cereal with a legume. So a cereal is a high carbon plant. We have an imbalance for the biology and the energy flow into the soil. Well, we put a low carbon, high percentage nitrogen legume with that plant to balance that microbial diet. So we actually have a functioning soil that infiltrates air, infiltrates nitrogen, infiltrates water. So with that being said, and one more, I forgot about this. I am the only one on the panel tonight with cows on my own farm. So we're going to talk about some of the benefits of intercropping for increased forage and grazing. So almost exclusively on our farm outside of peas, canola, and an intercrop I'm going to talk about at the end. We intercrop just about everything, and the purpose is for to extend the grazing season for our cattle, which is an extremely valuable thing these days with the price of feed. So utilizing every acre, every ray of sunlight, every drop of moisture, the best we can to both feed our above ground livestock, but also feed our below ground livestock as well. And now, like I said, we have an excellent panel. So we got Dan Fox from Brunkild, Manitoba. Dan's a good friend of mine, an agronomist. He has an agronomy company and has been doing some really interesting work documenting some intercrops, as you're going to see tonight. It's an excellent job, but also just taking a different look at his farm from a holistic standpoint. Dan is a zero tiller in Brunkild, Manitoba, which I assumed was a curse word before Dan was doing it. So yeah, Dan's kind of a interesting guy who kind of thinks outside the box, and as you'll see with his presentation here, he's got some really interesting data. So Dan, why don't you unmute yourself and turn your camera on and tell us about your farm, your family, kind of your history, and how and why you got into intercropping. And of course, we're going to dive into with great detail an intercrop that you've done on your farm. So take it away, Dan.
Yeah, I think you guys brought me on because I'm the least experienced of the group here, so I can be I'm stepping on a few rakes, but
yeah, obviously we're going to make fun of you at the end.
Good. Yeah, I've been kind of an agronomist for 10 years, so seen a pile of acres as much as my own, and got to bring back a lot of the good that our customers did, and then I mean, we have issues and they have struggles as well, and just sometimes you go home and you ask yourself, why or what, and it's often just been more chemical and more fertilizers kind of been the only answer. And talking to guys like Travis, and then getting to know Joe more as well, there's other ideas out there, and how can we maybe listen a bit more and maybe try some stuff. So farming's obviously my passion as well, and just trying different stuff it's cool. So you did a pretty good job introducing me there, Joe, so that works. This picture is from 2019. It's my backyard. We grew a really good oat crop, and it just started raining. So we couldn't really till, and I was like, well, we can't, like, it's just raining. And I think we got 12 inches of rain that fall, and I was like, we're leaving it. And guys were kind of fighting through the mud and trying to get it done. And it went from, being 6 inches tall to 8 inches tall to 10 inches tall. And I was like, you're never going to see that. It's never going to dry out in the spring. You can see in the ditch, like, it was just water everywhere. Neighbors' field are starting to pond by the end of it. And, we were pretty dry going in. I could drive through that basically the whole time until freeze up. We left it. It was basically heading out, going into freeze up. And it was the first field you could have seeded in spring. Believe it or not, like, the stubble, all that oat stubble was gone. We heavy harrowed it once, but we never even touched it really. That spring, it was weird. I don't know if the earthworms flew in for that afternoon I was in there, but everywhere I stopped and dug, I was finding earthworms, and I've never seen them on my farm before. So that was, interesting, kind of got me thinking. And it followed up by being the biggest canola yielding crop we ever grew, actually. So then that's kind of, I had to dig in my phone deep in that picture, but that kind of moment or that sequence is kind of burned into my
You
brain.
actually, you inspired me. I went back and into my OneDrive and found the first cover crop that I ever grew too. And I moved it up because I thought that's a really good story. I should be telling that more. So Dan, I got a quick question for you, and we can move on. Like, in 2019 and your training as an agronomist, what did you expect going into that situation the next year? Like a yield reduction because you grew all this plant biomass and you're tying up these minerals? Like, what was your expectation?
Yeah, Travis was starting to kind of talk to me a bunch and kind of get me excited about different ideas, but I just knew, like, that spring was really dry, and obviously everything was tilled black and deep, and the deeper you go to get the blackest soil possible. And there's been 2-3 years in a row where guys are seeding 5 inches deep to find moisture, which is no good recipe. And then disc drills were, you had stepping, so then one row was coming and one wasn't, and like, there was nothing good coming from tilling the crap out of it and drying it out either. I kind of felt like I had nothing to lose. And then the idea of soil health is much more clear in my mind today than it was 3 years ago. But I kind of knew I could kind of go between the rows with RTK, and with the disc drill, we could try new things. And I felt like an underutilized tool. But you know what? I kind of just closed my eyes and said, we're going to try it. Nothing too deep about it in a way.
Excellent answer. Well, and a perfect segue too. You were meant for this, Dan.
What do we got here? Oh, yeah. Well, the other thing with tillage was, when you grow a really big crop and you pull that root ball up, half the time, like, the combine does a really good job of sizing up all the straw that goes through the combine. But when you till it, you're pulling up, what is it, 40% of the plants below ground, you're ripping that out, and then you got to deal with that too. So I just thought, well, if we let it grow and it kind of decomposes a bit, if we can get through that trash layer, there's a whole bunch of really nice black dirt that we can get underneath and have good soil contact. So
this is the same field that we saw in the before picture.
It's oats. It's not the same field. No.
Oh,
no. Be a different year.
But I do imagine your oat field the following year the residue would have looked a lot like this.
Well, this residue is kind of on almost no rain in the fall. That 12 inches of rain in that oat crop, like, there was no stubble left. It was gone. Like, there was nothing there. It looked, basically, if you would have ran a harrow through that, it wouldn't look like it was tilled.
Yeah.
This is probably more normal. So what you see between the rows is just the regrowth from the previous year. But
so Dan, walk us through why it's so important to go between the rows and keeping that root matter in the soil.
Well, you're just avoiding the root ball. There's nothing between the rows. There's nothing there. It's just black soil. So when you're trying to find seed to soil contact, and you're driving right, if you're dropping your disc right between that row, you're dropping it into just basically root mass, and kind of, you're just not getting seed soil contact. It dries out and just doesn't seem to work. If you go at an angle, if you seeded that at an angle or a 90, you would see the strips through the field every pass. And if you can get between the rows, I mean, seed's expensive. You get every seed up. It's kind of whatever. I don't know. We're probably seeding. I think that was actually soybeans going in there. But a lot of the things that I've learned from corn, I try and bring back to the simple crops like wheat, because corn's more picky. But if you treat your other crops like a specialty crop like corn, it seems to work out.
I agree. I tell people that about cover crops. I'm like, just treat it like you're growing canola. You're gonna have way, way, way better results.
To me, just going between the rows it's just way less of a headache at seeding time. Like, it's just easy. There's nothing to deal with. It's just black soil in the middle of those rows. Whereas if you say tilled it, you'd have kind of a jumble everywhere, and you wouldn't be able to deal with it. It just makes it easy.
Preaching to the converted here, Dan. Sorry, for the sake of time, let's get talking about your intercrop, kind of why you did it. Focus on the why, and the concept of kind of why you were sold on the idea.
Well, just for the struggle that we always have at seeding time of trying to do a perfect job, I said, well, why don't we just grow every crop as a fall crop? Because in the fall time it's dry, you can do whatever you want. You're not pressed for time, and it always comes up really nice. The negative of that was if there was, like, say we were big winter wheat guys, we got these huge potholes of winter wheat, and then weeds fill in, so that maybe didn't work. And I'd love to try winter canola, but it would be the same idea. You'd have big potholes or nothing would grow, and you'd have a mess. It's way easier in the fall time too. So that's kind of where intercropping I thought was clever, because we tried rye vetch, and I figured, well, anywhere it doesn't work out, the vetch will just fill in. So we're killing a whole bunch of birds without a stone. But really what I was trying to do is, honestly, with intercropping, I thought it would be easier, and it would be less work, kind of, in a way, and I could focus on
We'll talk about that. Looks lazy, but a lot more management, which I did not expect.
You do less work in the field, but every pass you make is really important. Like when you're out with like a tillage pass is like a magic eraser. Whatever sins you've caused, they're gone, right? You make a rut with your sprayer, if you're not tilling it, it never goes away. If you want to spray, if you want to grow Liberty canola, you just go pick up Liberty. If you have an intercrop, now you got to figure out what you can spray on it. And there's a bunch of cowboys intercropping, and we're kind of stumbling through it. We're not sure. There's no data to kind of figure that out. So,
the wild thing is it's actual cowboys that are intercropping, and they're like, herbicide. Yeah. What? Yeah, I mixed this and this together. Went out there. Maybe I got 5 gallons, probably 8.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. And I'm sitting here kind of scientific minded, trying to put a pencil this and kind of think this is how we're going to do it. And it's just not like that. You kind of leave it.
A movement takes all types, Dan. And I'm glad guys like you are coming on board with crazy guys like me.
Well, it's interesting, right? So we're farmers. So our field is supposed to be black as the night after harvest. It's not allowed to grow anything until spring. It's still not allowed to grow anything until the day you seed. And then it just has to be the greatest crop of all time for 90 days. And you're just trying, it's like how do you turn on the light switch? You can't. So that's why a lot of that stuff speaks to me, and it just makes sense. But yeah.
All right, let's get into the crop here, Dan. I got lots more questions for you here.
Where do I start with this? What do you want me to say?
I mean, you got some good bullet points. I'll add if.
First of all, because I was trying to deal with stubble, and you guys touched on it with carbon nitrogen ratio in some previous webinars, but wheat is a difficult stubble to manage if you want to try and till into it, because it can kind of be like a blanket and stay cold and wet. So I thought, well, if we seed fall rye in there and vetch, and the vetch is supposed to be supplying the nitrogen, and we're really more concerned about the vetch crop than the rye crop, we've got a season to break down that straw. It's like cereal stubble always catches way more snow than canola stubble. And canola stubble, to me, is sacred in the spring because it always seeds really easy. So you can kind of do whatever you want. it did have a little bit of wheat volunteers, but they kind of fizzled out. I didn't really, it didn't seem to be a huge issue that way. So to me, it was a win because I didn't have to deal with that wheat crop. I cut it as high as I could. Like I think I cut that. Dad was on me because I was missing the odd head, but my goal was to cut it like knee high. And so I just literally seeded into black, black soil, and it came up okay. It didn't come up great.
Well,
but
yeah, you guys didn't have any precipitation, right?
I didn't heavy harrow it to prepare the seed bed or anything either. I really just relied on the idea of the vetch filling in any crappy spots. So, if the combine stopped, they kind of eked a little bit, but I kind of just let it be. And at one point, the hatch opened up and there was a row of straw behind the combine. I left that too. The vetch kind of filled it in, but the whole idea of this is like you talk about, lowering your risk on the farm and lowering cost. Like I spent nothing on this crop. I threw it in the ground on a Sunday afternoon. And I came back. Well, I did run the sprayer through there, do a nitrogen trial, and then I harvested it. And also looked at it every night on my way home, but that was for fun.
I had the same experience when I used to start. It was like I tucked my cover crops and intercrops into bed every single night, whether it was 9 o'clock at night or 3 o'clock. I was checking it.
Yeah, well, it was different every time I went. Sometimes you go in there, there'd be bugs. Sometimes you go, yeah, it's cool, it's fun. So we seeded it, and we got like literally no rain after seeding. We got the snow catch, and then basically it didn't rain till after harvest. It got an inch and a half of rain. It didn't look like, no crops looked good, but it didn't look good. You can kind of see there how we got between the rows. We seeded into what we seeded into. It overwintered really well. It did eventually come. The picture kind of says it all there. I don't know. At the time, you couldn't hardly see vetch. It was hard to find it. Like It was down in the canopy. They were there everywhere, but they were small. You can move on.
Sorry, I must have a bit of a delay, Dan. Sorry about that.
Yeah, we weren't sure when to thrash it. The rye was ready, and everyone says if you pea in the corner of your field, the rye is going to germinate, and you need to treat your rye like it's the most important thing ever. And I was kind of more worried about the vetch. And it hadn't rained in forever, so I wasn't really expecting it to rain. And we waited a little longer than we probably should have, thinking we'd get a few extra vetch out of there. And I think that was a mistake because there was lots of shelling. But the only thing I think I learned from that was that swathing, it's for sure the play, just to kind of protect it. And then the combine ripped through it good. Super easy to, combine settings were basically irrelevant. We were getting all the vetch in there, and it was so dry. We were throwing very little over, so that the whole harvest part of it was easy.
Well, let's get into your nitrogen trial here, Dan. This is very interesting. And like I was telling you on the phone today, I got some other stuff about vetch and nitrogen trials, the only one I'm familiar with. But what did you do here?
Being a conventional farmer that's dabbling in the world of whatever we're dabbling in here, going with no N was not getting past the board very quickly. So we decided we'd buy a tanker load of fertilizer and put on 50 pounds, but that wasn't enough to satisfy Mitch. So I did some stuff at 0, some stuff at 30 or 50, and then some strips at 150, and then just watched it. So you can see in the yield map on the right that there was obviously responses, and then you can see the picture in the middle is the strips. So there's a lot going on there. I guess the moral of the story was that if you just go based there, that profit map thing there on the bottom left only shows there's no vetch included in that. It's just what the rye yielded. And I guess I forget what I put in for a sale price, but I guess what you can see is they're within $5 of each other, whatever you did. Obviously there's no rain, so 150 N is not going to get you there. But if you look at the yield map, the dark green strip in the middle is actually 150 N. And I can't zoom in on that, but it was our highest yielding strip. It went 38 bushels, and the strip right beside it did 24 with 0 N. But the interesting thing is if you walked in there on any part of that field, in any part of the 0 N trial, it was like at some point in the fall, it was just vetch. There's a whole strip of vetch. That whole strip was blue. Like it had all climbed all the way up to the top of the canopy, and it was corner to corner on that strip. And at 150 N, you would need a way better agronomist than me to go find a veg plant in there. And on the rest of the field, where there was 30 to 50, like they were sparse. And Dad and I were kind of arguing if we killed them with the fertilizer or if we just choked them out or what happened. But in the end, there was rye that did poke through. But I guess on that 0N trial, we got 5,000 pounds of vetch on that 25-acre strip.
So a couple hundred pounds an acre.
Yeah. Yeah. On an inch and a half of rain.
Well, and I think this is, well, you said two things that's important. This was like, I've been sowing vetch for a decade, and this was by far the worst year we've had. It has not even close. The vetch that survived, the grasshoppers ate. It was horrible. A really bad vetch year. But start doing the math on 200 pounds of vetch an acre. You know, if you can sell it off your farm for $2.75 or $3, I mean, what was your input cost? And we're talking about $600 an acre. You know, if we can get a year, and I know Darren's grown rye vetch as well, so he'll be able to add to these numbers. But I mean, what happens on a year where we get, you know, really good precipitation and for 500 pounds an acre? Like, I'm glad you said it, that rye is the byproduct crop of this intercrop, because yeah, it really comes down to just vetch is such a profitable crop. It was just worth so much per pound that you don't need a whole lot to be profitable. And you proved in this instance that fertilizer was a detriment to the vetch.
Yeah, I'd love to know what the rye would do in a normal year, but I don't really care. Like, it's kind of a vetch crop, right?
Yes. The story I was going to tell is about Scott Chalmers, and I should really follow up with Scott. He said this in a presentation years ago that I saw in Brandon, but he had done like 10 years of rye vetch trials and saw no biomass reduction in the vetch. I'm hopefully I'm saying this right, but I'm almost positive that at different fertilizer rates, he was seeing no biomass reduction with the vetch. So rightfully, what he would like, the conclusion he came up with is that nitrogen fertilizer doesn't hamper the growth of the vetch. But yeah, and who knows, like, we're talking about two different crops, like maybe the allelopathic hormone on the rye, because it was fertilized, had a more detrimental effect because there was more leaf biomass, or maybe the rye used even more moisture, so it took away from the vetch. Who knows? And it's just one trial, but like that is damn interesting, isn't it, Dan?
Yeah, I would say like it wasn't our most profitable crop because crop insurance. Like, we grew an average crop with everything, and crop insurance topped everything else up, and that's a hard comparison. But I will say our spring wheat yielded the same thing. So our spring wheat yielded 30. It's worth a few bucks more, but you got to remember there's no vetch in this. So I don't think other than figuring out how to separate, I think it did good. I learned a lot. We didn't use any fertilizer, didn't spray any chemical. A lot of wins on that side of things. So yeah. And
it'll be interesting to see. Sorry, you got another slide here, Dan. That map showed up.
Yeah, like we're in the Red River Valley, everything's flat, blah blah blah. That's an elevation map.
Yep.
So you can kind of just see for yourself. The strip was I was trying to avoid the bottom left, so green is high and red is low. There's, I don't know, 4 feet of elevation maybe from the bottom of the ditch to the top of a knoll in that field. But I was trying to avoid the two opposite corners that are green because they just always do better. The one thing I did, it was just like night and day. Anytime you were in those red areas where there was more moisture, there was just way more vetch. It was just a 1-to-1 ratio there for sure. So just show that it was a fair spot, and the takeoffs there. Yeah.
Well, this is very interesting as well.
So the right is what that 0N strip was, and the left is kind of the field average, like the rest of the bin. I knew you could tell where the vetch was, and I binned it separately.
Right. Yeah.
And then I have cleaned that. The rest of the bin now, like if you did the math on how much vetch is in there, it's a lot of money, but I don't know if that's probably dockage. I guess I just got to give it away, but yeah.
Well, I got a home for you if you do separate it, Dan.
Yeah. Well,
But this is kind of the neat part. So I want to talk about what your plan is for this year, and I see you got a 2023 year in here as well. And this is the exciting part. Whereas if you're willing to get creative in your management style, like there is some real opportunity here, and it only happened because you put the seeds in place.
Yeah, this is kind of part of the vision I had, was that we could leave something in there that would break down 2 years of cereal stubble, right? We did get really good rainfall. Actually, after harvest, we had really good rainfall, and the moisture was better than it's been in 2 or 3 years. But that picture you see, maybe I cherry picked the left picture, like, because it was cool, but like you wouldn't be able to take a step in there without standing on a vetch vine from corner to corner on the whole field. So the overwintering, or the fall regrowth of vetch was extreme. And by the end of freeze up, there was actually quite a bit of rye that came back to. I will say in crop, there's a wild oat patch that's bordering our field and the neighboring field, and it's been there since I've been around. It's not very big, but it's there. And this year, where we seeded rye across that line, like on the rye vetch side, there was not one wild oats. First time I've ever seen in my life. And on the other side, neighboring side, had oats, and you could see them through. So the allelopathy certainly worked. This field has like sow thistle and dandelion and a few other culprits. Oh, you know what I should mention too? That strip that had 150 N, you could see from space because there was 7-foot tall lamb's quarters blowing through that patch. Just really interesting, where there was no end, there was no weeds at all. But yeah, so there's really good vetch regrowth. I think there's quite a bit of rye actually that came. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. But there are weeds in there as well now.
I mean, that lamb's quarters on 150 pounds end, Dan, that is nothing if not interesting. And the strip aside, and the strip aside, there was nothing.
The 0 N, there was nothing, and then the 50 N, there was the odd smattering that might have poked through. Yeah.
So talk about your plan going into this year, Dan. What are you thinking?
Nobody has put their arm around me and told me how this is going to get done, but I've kind of given myself a chance to. Yeah, there's a world's listening, so someone can call me. Yeah, free jacket forever tells me what I got to do tonight. There's a pile of that field. It's mostly under snow. That's kind of just walked in by the field edge there, where there was an open area. There's a pile of vetch in there that I'd love to keep, and I'd love to intercrop somehow. And so I've kind of got a deal lined up to put PRG in the crop that I grow. Like whatever I grow this year, intercrop with vetch, I could put PRG in after harvest. And I got a guy lined up that would work with me on that. So I'm thinking I could maybe triple crop the vetch, if I look to 2023.
Yep.
So in the meantime, it would be something that would fit into that properly, weed control wise or whatever, that you could have vetch or ryegrass. Monocrop is probably the easiest, but then it's just going to not be thrashable and probably not going to work. I think that canola I think Joe, you were telling me about that canola, that non-GMO canola. Talked to one person, they say it's super easy to separate. Talk to another person, it's not. I think that would be super easy to go knife in there.
Well, fortunately for you, we got a guy on the webinar tonight that grows it, so he may have something to add to this.
Yeah, so I don't know. I honestly, there's a whole bunch. I'm probably the least qualified guy on this webinar to even talk about this. I just know that it's a major play. I know coming into this last crop, starting at 64% of my crop was intercropped or really cropped to some degree.
Man, that's crazy.
In
2 years.
Yeah. I'm a bit gun shy now because this whole, I was going to build a shop, and now I'm thinking I'm going to build a separating system, but yeah, it's there for something magical to happen, but I can't tell you yet.
All right, now let's finish with this quote. Obviously, Dan, I feel the exact same, but so personal beef is, I think that the movement and the plant diversity, soil health, intercrop, like I am so thankful for the community that I have and support. But what we don't talk about enough is constantly talking in terms that conventional ag understands, which is money, 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 economics. And of course, that's important. But something we definitely don't talk about enough, and Aaron Nurbos talked about it last webinar, was quality of life and being excited about management and you having the ability to be creative and understand nature and understand the plants that are growing. So I'm so glad you included this, Dan. This is why we added your family. But I was telling you on the phone this afternoon, I'm like, I don't leave this room and go jump into a pot of coins like Daffy Duck or Daffy Duck's uncle. Like that, I'm not filthy. I haven't got filthy rich because I started, intensive soil health practices 5 years ago. But something that's amazing is it has kept me farming because it is so damn interesting. I am so curious and so excited to sow a crop every year and actually see my creative ideas or insane ideas or conversations that come out of people like talking with you or Chris or Darren and seeing them tangibly work on my farm. That is a powerful ass experience and damn gratifying when it works. It hurts like hell when it doesn't, but hey, just learn from it and move on.
Yeah. I mean, if you go to I gotta be careful what I say because I'm still an agronomist, but if you go to a retailer and say, well, we got to get more out of every acre we have. And over 10 years, the only answer to that has been tank mix these chemicals together because the last ones didn't work and use more fertilizer. And there's a point, I don't know, there's a point where you can't do that anymore, right? So this was cool. It was different. It was kind of hard actually too, just taking crazy risks. Yeah, it's fun.
You're the crazy guy in the area. It only lasts for so long. I promise there's an end.
Yeah, well, thanks.
All right. Well, great job, Dan. You did super. Stick on for question time. So Darren, you can turn your camera on, turn your sound on. So Darren's coming to us from Deloraine, Manitoba. He's tried lots of different intercrops. We're going to kind of, Darren and I are going to get in more the details and actual fundamentals of implementing these cover crops. He's got a newer cleaning system that he pumps a pile of grain through in a year. So Darren, welcome. Introduce yourself and I will try and keep up with the clicker here.
All right. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I kind of got some short notice here, so I might not have quite the same details in my slides, but
what are you talking about? I gave you like 12 hours.
More like, I think it was more like 9.
Yeah, that's true. Well, anyway, thanks
yeah.
for being on. And Darren, you and I have had lots of phone conversations, so I know we're going to manage just fine.
Oh yeah, winging it's fun. So yeah. My family here, again, we're looking at an old picture that Joe had to find off of Twitter, but yeah, this one's about 5 years ago. I guess I need to kind of update the family picture. But anyway, yeah, as far as this, actually, the other comment Joe made about getting guys from different areas, and so far, a lot of what Dan said is what I'm going to say, that it's the distance between us, but yet, yeah, what we're doing and what we're seeing are so similar.
It's because the principles of nature are true everywhere, Darren.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah.
So why don't you talk about your farm a bit? What, like, kind of the history, what you guys have grown in the past, and kind of what made you, start to experiment with some of these crops.
Okay, yeah. I guess, yeah, basically we're about a 3,000 acre farm here. I kind of started down the road of the cover crops. I kind of got some interest in it. When I was in university, Martin Entz kind of showed some of the stuff and I experimented with it a little, basically the red clover into some winter wheat. And turned out it worked good. I just got fed up because my dad decided to cultivate the field that fall. And I was like, well, if you're going to do that, I guess there's not much sense in me doing this. So it kind of got forgotten about for a few years. And then in about 16, I was getting interested in it again. And I was like, I'm going to start trying covers on 3 fields. And this is where I have pretty much the exact same story again as Dan. One of those fields was an oat field. We had a hailstorm on it right before combining it. I think we had about, my guess is 60 bushels an acre worth of oats on the ground. And that ended up being my cover crop on that field. And exact same experience. It was wet fall that year, and that field was dry. I could drive across it right up until the snow fell. And the next spring, it was great condition, the soil. So that kind of gave me the cover cropping bug. And I got to keep reminding myself come harvest when trying to seed the fall ones, it's like, yeah, it's important to get out here and get them in. Even this year after 2020 going into 21 being dry, I did not get much seeded in 2020 for covers. And the one field that I did have a fall cover on, I, looking back now, realize it went to canola in 21, and it was my best field of canola. So the idea of a cover robbing moisture from the next crop kind of got blown out of the mind there, that it's nope. Now the one thing there was, I did have it as I had rye in that cover, and my management come this spring or this past spring was kill the rye early, so it isn't robbing spring moisture, but what it used in the fall got replaced.
In my experience with fall rye and sowing cash crops into it, killing early is a good idea for many different angles. I think the allelopathy has a pretty detrimental effect on, at least I've got 2 examples, one with peas, one with canola. And there was a line in the field where it was terminated the year before and where it wasn't.
Yeah, like I've got limited experience there, and I have seeded green, but yeah, only when there's moisture. So
all right, well, Darren, let's get into some of the intercrops.
Yeah,
we got peas and oats here.
Yeah, the peas and oats, it's kind of been one of my favorites lately. And when I was in my quick rush trying to choose a few pictures to send for this has been one of my favorites to show people, because it highlights one of the risk management aspects of this this intercrop. Is this got a heavy rain on it, and we had some drown out of the peas, but the oats survived in that spot. So right there was just that big risk management, keeping something growing in that spot, having a cash crop where the peas drowned out still.
So Darren, why don't we talk about like how often you've done this, what you've done as far as adjusting seeding rates, variety, trying to get maturities lined up, what you're growing for peas, that kind of stuff.
Okay, yeah. Basically, I've been growing forage peas. I have done Austrian winter peas as well with oats, and the big thing there is just the market. So I haven't done much of the Austrian winter peas. I've stuck with the forage peas. My main reason I went forage peas was just kind of because they're usually higher priced than a yellow. And I figured when I'm doing an intercrop, I'm hoping my oats are helping to hold the peas up, so I might as well go with something that lodges easier too, to counteract that problem or take advantage of the oats there. And I know when I guess one advantage here, when I've separated, does clean it up. Although when I've been hauling the peas into the guys cleaning them, they always comment, yeah, yours are the cleanest ones coming in. Other guys are unloading and we can't even see them coming out of the trailer. There's so much dirt, and yours are so clean. And I'm like, well, they have been through a cleaner, but when I hear their description, it's, well, when I'm cleaning them, they're not that messy to begin with. So they're not on the ground. I'm not getting the dirt in the combine in the first place.
Well, and that's our experience. Like, we intercrop forage peas with canola, and I mean, 3 years out of 4, the peas have virtually taken over the canola. And not that I think I'm glad the canola is there. You know, they're not lying flat on the ground, but you know, you might have 3 or 4 inches to deal with instead of, you know, 1 or 2. So maybe talk about that, the advantage of, have you ever grown forage peas monocrop, and like just the difference in harvestability, how you're setting the combine, stuff like that?
I've actually never done forage peas monocrop. I've done yellows lots before. So, but yeah, as far as setting the combine in this, basically I've, pretty much set it for peas and adjust the fan down a little lower so I'm not blowing the oats out is really all I do different for setting it. And big advantage too, I've noticed, is hardly any splits in the peas. That
I've heard that.
going through with those oats in there, they just cushion them. So yeah, no splits.
So what are you doing as far as seeding rate? Maybe just touch quickly on herbicide, and I don't know how many oat pea crops you've harvested, but I'm very confident a lot you're getting different percentages at harvest time, but like just kind of give a ballpark of, you know, what you've seen on your farm.
Yeah, I've harvested 2 crops so far of this, so I'm definitely still learning. I'm basically in the range for seeding rate. I'm roughly 2 bushels of oats and about 1.5 bushels of peas. That found at that much more than that for peas, and they're getting quite dominant and starting to really pull the oats down. And yeah, kind of the 2 bushels of oats, I'm mostly just, that was kind of a guess going in, and I think I'm happy with it. I don't know if it's the right number or not. Yield wise, come harvest, I know in 20 I did do a comparison to monocrop oats that year. Dollar for dollar, we were pretty much even on the net dollar return. I think we could have done better on the intercrop just by tweaking rates. This year, it's a little hard for me to say. I didn't have a comparison, and I did have one issue in my intercrop of some sweet clover that kind of got away. Wished I hadn't had the crop already contracted, because I'm pretty sure I could have made some really good money off of it selling it as feed, but I needed the grain. So yeah, herbicides.
So what do you use for herbicide? And I realized I didn't ask you if you're fertilizing this crop.
Oh yeah, fertilizer. Yeah, I'll quickly answer that. No fertilizer. She's 0 N. My attitude generally has been, if I'm doing an intercrop with a legume, I'm making that legume do the work. There might be potential in some of these to improve yield, might not be within. Like I say, my attitude is that legume's there to do the work. And yeah, I'll get into the herbicides now on this one. Yeah, we're extremely limited on herbicides, so field selection is playing in a lot. Like in crop, I'm basically hitting it with a low rate of MCPA amine or sodium salt. It's kind of one of those things. I don't even know why I'm doing it. It doesn't really do anything anyway. I guess I'm doing it to make myself feel good. I tried to kill some weeds. And otherwise, yeah, pre-seed burn. There is maybe some off-label stuff every once in a while I consider. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, not really anything too special you can do on label.
And then Darren, I just got one. We should probably get rolling too, because the pea or the wheat flax, I'm very curious about. But do you ever do anything else with it? Like I heard you mention clover. Are you purposely adding another like more diversity in there?
That sweet clover was a carryover from a cover crop the previous year that I've experimented with sweet clover and covers for a couple years now and have learned how hard it is to kill. So
that's my experience too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of my favorite covers to establish because it establishes easy. One of my least favorite to get rid of.
Same. It's a word for word. And I want to give a one shout out too. Martin Entz was the reason I sowed my first cover crop as well. I have a diploma and a degree, and he was the only guy that ever mentioned any of this stuff to me. So yeah, I always, wherever I can, I like to give Martin a shout out because I like to think, well, there's at least two people here that he inspired to think a little different and go learn some stuff on your own. So
Oh yeah, I find it interesting how when I was in his classes sitting there and we're all thinking he was crazy and who would ever consider this? And now it's like 10 years later, it's, well, I should have listened a little closer.
I actually was I was not a good student, not even close, but it's the only A+ I got in university was Martin Entz's organic class. Clearly I was born for this, even though I am not an organic farmer.
Yeah. All right, yeah, we can get on to the next one.
Sorry, I think there's a bit of a delay, Darren, here, but we got wheat flax up here.
Yeah, there it's up now. But yeah, the wheat flax, again, I've done it 2 years now, and I had one awesome success and one train wreck, basically. And we started with the awesome success. So yeah, my first year I did it, I basically just did the idea of let's cut the wheat rate back to 2/3 of normal and throw in 10 pounds of flax. And that was really all I changed from growing a wheat crop. And
It's from a fertilizer standpoint.
Fertilizer, I did the same fertilizer as a wheat crop. Yeah, so I just kind of was like, in our area, I've tried to grow flax different times and I've probably had more failures than successes. And I'm like, I really like flax in the rotation, but as a monocrop, it just is not working. So if I can intercrop it, can I make it do something? So I had no idea going in what this was going to yield for flax or the wheat even, but it was just like, well, if I get something off of here, I'm probably ahead. So in the end, it was great because my wheat in the intercrop yielded, I think I say that did the same. I think it actually did do better than the monocrop in the field.
So
and
just acre for acre, you were getting more wheat with the intercrop than monocrop wheat.
Yeah. Just the wheat yield alone in the intercrop was equal, if not better than the monocrop wheat in the same field. And I had a half section and there was about 45 acres of monocrop. So big enough area for a reasonable comparison, I'd say. And in the end on this one, I separated out about 5 bushels an acre worth of flax. So I was like, well, the only cost the flax had to cover in that was the separating. Because it's like, well, my seed cost for the flax at the time got canceled out by the wheat seed I saved. So I just, if 5 bushels an acre of flax only really has to pay for running this through a cleaner, it was like, yeah, 5 bushels an acre worth of flax was great money. So,
and I mean, this was in 2019 or 2020. Now it would be unbelievable money.
Now it would have been fantastic. But that's where all of a sudden in 21, it was a complete wreck for me. And yeah, I hate saying this, that it was a wreck for anyone I've talked to, although that is the good thing to know too, is don't get too excited about these right off the start either. That yeah, even with what flax prices were by the time it was done, it probably wouldn't have hardly paid to separate it out this year. So
what are you using for herbicide on this, Darren?
This one, we're a kochia area, so I'm going in with authority ahead of it. That I was really excited in 2020 when that authority registration came through or I think it was early in the spring, right before seeding this, that it came through on wheat. So I was able to do that without, well, I saw that come through and I'm like, hey, that's a good idea. I can do that and actually have some kochia control here. And then in crop, I'm going usually with Bactral M again, just to try and do what I can with it on kochia, whatever escapes the authority, which in that year, I was really happy. I had one miss in the burn off, and yeah, I realized what it did do. So, otherwise,
Darren, I got one other question for you. I don't know if you use fungicide, but did you do any fungicide trials on the wheat flax versus even monocrop wheat, or if you left the check strip?
this one did not get any fungicide. I did do some foliar nutrition on it at fungicide timing, basically. And for us that year, I left a check strip. I didn't really see any difference. It basically was the way our season went that year. We had a lot of moisture up front, and then we dried up come late summer. So I don't think it really did much in the end. And I'm sorry, I have a phone ringing here.
You can take it. We'll wait.
Oh no, I'm just trying to get it shut off.
All good. And yeah, just you've got some experience with cereal rye and hairy vetch, and it's going to segue perfectly to the next slide about cleaning. But why don't you just? I know Dan did some pretty good detail on it, but why don't you just talk about your experience with cereal rye, hairy vetch?
Yeah, that's where, like I said, my talk virtually mirrors his. That yeah, the vetch, well, you can see it's definitely variable out here, but yeah, kind of filled in spots where some of the rye wasn't. I was, yeah, basically nothing for inputs. This field got seeded. It got a burn off in the fall, mainly because I was targeting foxtail barley, and next thing across the field was the swather and then the combine. So yeah, no nitrogen, no fertilizer whatsoever put on this. And yeah, it was, again, like Dan said, the rye yield wasn't anything fantastic. I think I was upper 20s for yield on the rye, but I think my vetch yield worked out in the end somewhere around the 100 pounds an acre or a little over. So economics on it still worked out in the end. And
a nice segue. Why don't we actually specifically talk about the separating the rye vetch, but then we'll get into some detail about your system and doing different intercrops, Darren. But yeah, why don't you talk about what you have available to you from the rye vetch separation? I know you did a good job on lots of stuff because I bought some from you.
Yeah, I've still got some sitting here if you need more.
We will talk.
And okay, yeah, my separating system here. This is kind of my setup I've had for doing everything. And it's that green part in the background is an aspirator, or a fractioning aspirator, which I bought off the start thinking from trade shows. They said they're the greatest thing ever, and got it home and found out, yeah, this thing does not do the job. So it was kind of one of those things that, yeah, after a little bit of experimenting, I went and bought the other cleaner there that's attached to it now. Gray part is a Garrett vibratory screen, and it's really what I used to do the separation. I was so disappointed with the aspirator, I couldn't bring myself to try and sell it to someone because I'd feel guilty selling it to them. So I just set it up so I run the grain through that aspirator first. It blows some of the light stuff out the end and cleans it up a little bit before it hits the screen. And it does do a partial separation of the grain before it hits the screen, which I don't know for sure, but I think it is helping a little bit of the capacity on the screen. Actually, if you want to go to the next picture, I think that one shows it on the screen a bit better.
Yep.
There. So yeah, you can see on when it hits the screen there, we've got the peas are coming out on one side and the oats on the other. So yeah, the oats are able to shake through quicker. And then, yeah, as they get through, those peas spread across, and any of the oats that were still kind of mixed there in the middle get a better chance to shake through those peas. So for me, running it like this, I think on a mixture like that, I'm usually getting around 250, maybe 300 or just over 300 bushels an hour worth of capacity. That's just kind of looking at total volume going through, not looking at bushel weight, not getting into the test weight discussion here. Trying to think what else here on that side of things.
What are you running through this system, Darren? And I see you got a spiral set up, and if I'm not mistaken, that looks like rye and vetch running through it.
Yep. Yeah, the spirals, the rye and vetch, that basically I found out for separating them on the screens. I ran it through the aspirator and the screens, and I found out with the rye and vetch, a 9 slot would take out like 99.9% of the rye and would leave about half of the vetch still in with the rye. And yeah, what I was getting for vetch off of that, like I say, it was 99% or probably 99.9% pure vetch in the end. And by doing this, then I was able to at least pre-clean, get a bunch of the junk out that causes problems where it doesn't flow through the spirals well. And then, yeah, the mixed rye and vetch ran through the spirals to separate them, which isn't...
That doesn't look like a fast process.
No. It doesn't do a perfect job, but it's kind of the best job. Like, I think after I finally got it all through in the end, I think, I was down to about 3% or 3 or 4% rye still in my vetch in the end, and very little vetch left in the rye. But yeah, these spirals, I did not know how this was going to turn out when I started into this intercrop. So I'm like, I am not spending any extra money on spirals than I have to. So I got the one set of double cores, which it's, I think about a 25 bushel an hour capacity is what I was experiencing. So yeah, we were a long time getting this through the spirals. So
well, and there's some challenges ahead of us, because I know we didn't get to it talking with Dan, but I'm sure we'll cover it in the question period. Is Dan ran his through a color sorter and didn't have a fantastic experience with that either. So there's got to be a solution.
Yeah, like, I don't know what's the best way. Like I say, I found probably, because yeah, the stuff you got from me originally was, I'd run it through the other cleaner, but I think I had a 10 slot screen at that time, which didn't take much of the vetch out. And once I got the 9 slot and re-cleaned my rye vetch mixture, then it did definitely go through the spirals a lot nicer. Yeah. So yeah, having it as clean as possible before the spirals, I think, was the biggest help of anything for capacity there, because I know the first attempt I had like just a few chunks of pods in there that were giving me trouble, and yeah, they just keep on plugging right at the top where it feeds into the spirals, and as soon as you get something like that, they're plugging it. Well, yeah, you've maybe lost half your capacity just from one pod.
Oh, that's slow, eh?
Yeah.
Well, I don't. Oh, sorry. I flipped to the next one. Well, great job, Darren. Stick around. Think about the question we're gonna start off with. in question period. But yeah, great job, and we'll see you in a few minutes here. Chris, if you want to take your mic off, turn your video on. Chris Raupers, a very good friend of mine. Yeah, Chris and I talk about lots of crazy ideas. Most people that are watching the webinar tonight, I'm sure, have seen Chris around. He was on a few times last year. So anyway, Chris has got lots and lots of good ideas. Excited for question period, hearing about his new ideas and new intercrops that he wants to try. But anyway, for the time being, Chris, talk about your farm and your beautiful family, and why you're doing intercropping.
So hi everybody, thanks for having me on again, guys. I always enjoy it. And yeah, so anyway, there you see our two girls, and then finally last fall Lindsay and I got our boys, so we're pretty pumped on that. But anyway, if you want to go to the next slide. So I hope my my internet where I am isn't
well, and
too shitty, but we'll find out, I guess.
Everyone's been a little delayed, Chris, so I'll try and stay ahead of you on slides.
Oh, good. Yeah. So we farm just at Newdale / Cardale, and we're at about 2,000 feet above sea level elevation. So pretty high up there, getting right close to the Riding Mountain Park. My own accounted for 8-year average precipitation is just shy of 15 inches. So fairly decent for rainfall. In the season of 21, we were very, very lucky. But then, you know, something like 90 frost-free days. Now that's on the short end, of course. We have also certainly had 110, but I think for comparison of most of Manitoba, we're definitely on the shorter end. And then we have Newdale clay loam soil or black Chernosm soil, and so altogether pretty good start really for soil health, if you will, that way. The soil's pretty good to begin with, but definitely let's not make it any worse. Let's try to make it even better, right?
I always tell guys the first step to building soil is to stop losing soil.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, bang on. Yeah. So intercrops I've tried on the farm: pea canola, pea oat, pea camelina, and wheat faba. And when I started choosing, reason why I got into intercropping is just going to lots of different soil health webinars, meeting guys like you, Joe, and you know, Derek Axton and Wecker back in the day, and lots of those guys, and just being absolutely, you know, intrigued by what they're saying and what they're doing, and the benefits that they're speaking about. So initially I was thinking of something like flax lentils, but then I was a little worried that, you know, lentils, and we're in a little bit of a higher moisture area, and then I don't even do flax. I have personally never grown flax. My dad and my uncle used to, but you know, so it was, and then I just took a step back and said, okay, well, why not just start with something that I know grows well in my area? And so that was obviously pea canola was the beginning, and then pea oat and so on. And so yeah, go to the next one, I guess.
You got it.
So pea canola is honestly not my favorite, because I believe that the two plants are too much on the opposite spectrum of the growing season. Peas want to be sown early and harvested early. Canola wants to be sown late and harvested late. And like if we seed, well, I think I speak for most farms in Manitoba, but if we seed canola, you know, much before May long, or really any before that, what are the chances of a frost taking it and flea beetles at the same time, right? They always just decimate it. So therefore you're better to just wait till the 20th or whatever. But so those are
Chris, you brought up something interesting, which we get asked all the time. what do you see as far as flea beetle pressure in like pea canola intercrop? I know, like you say, it's not your favorite, and I don't even think you grew any last year, but what's your experience on pea canola as far as flea beetle pressure?
So I only did it 2 years, and in those years, flea beetles weren't an issue. But those years I didn't have an issue in the other monocrop acres either. So yeah, I can't really speak to that because I don't have long years of results, you know.
No, and I guess just to answer my own question is we see varying results. Sometimes it's,
Okay.
I mean, we see really good canola population in other years, depending on the farm, of course, where we're geographically located. Like I've had pea canola that where there ain't a canola plant left because I wasn't going to spray an insecticide. So yeah, it's I was asking your perspective because I thought maybe you would had a different experience than that. But anyway, no, moving on. This one's very exciting, Chris.
Yeah.
It's the pea camelina, and we can just kind of start talking about, you know, some of these specialty markets.
For sure. So just one point back to the Piola though is that that one good point about it is obviously the easy separation, right? Like any rotary screen you buy at an auction sale for cheap money will do it. And I know there's lots of guys that do it and they seem to like it. So maybe I just didn't try enough years, didn't try hard enough. And you know, I'd love to run across somebody and get some tips here some point. Yeah.
Well, from a separation standpoint, I can attest to that. You get a rotary screen set correctly, and you're not doing hundreds of bushels an hour. You're doing thousands of bushels an hour. It can literally, we've had the screener, the peas coming off the screener keep up with a 10-inch auger. So yeah,
Wow.
As far as separation goes, there's nothing that beats it, but it's got its limitations too. Like I said, 1 year out of 4, the canola has successfully held up the forage peas. Well, I'm gonna have to change something, obviously.
Yeah. And then the P. camelina, I've done it 2 years and had a disaster and a good one. And so, interestingly enough, camelina is apparently a winter annual, and sorry, is my internet being shitty here?
No, you're
but
good.
Anyway,
you're crystal clear.
Okay, cool. So camelina winter annual. So apparently you can seed it in the fall and it kind of goes dormant and then comes back up in the springtime. And initially I wasn't aware of this, but did, however, notice that there didn't really seem to be any frost damage when canola was kind of getting nipped. So that's one huge bonus. You can seed it early with the peas, like literally as early as you want, and walk away from it. Potentially even fall seed stuff. I haven't played with that yet. Then flea beetles just don't touch it. So last year, horrible for flea beetles everywhere, I think, and sprayed lots of my monocrop canola with insecticide. Had to, otherwise would have watched the crop, you know, be eaten. And in this case, the flea beetles just, they don't go to it. So that's fantastic. I think that the pea camelina acts as a fantastic gap filler in the peas. It just kind of, when you walk into it, you kind of get the feeling that it just fills in whatever. If there's a small gap in the pea seed row, it just kind of fills that in and grows in between the rows and stuff. So
Chris,
it kind of gives off
I should have asked this off the start, because we want to be, for the people out there, yes, I'm sure they're obviously very interested in the concept, but I think what we want to try and do is like, what did you decide on as far as numbers, and how did you come to that conclusion? When I say numbers, like pounds of camelina versus pounds of peas.
Yeah. So the pea seeding rate was right around 130, which is basically what I put into my pea oat as well. And that kind of just came.
Yellow peas.
That's right. Yellow peas. Yeah. And that kind of came from guys initially telling me go 2/3 of a normal monocrop seeding rate, right?
Yeah.
And then the camelina came from the guys from out in Saskatchewan there, where I got the seed that had years of intercropping experience that said, I think 5 pounds. But the first year I was definitely more than that. That crop got drowned out, so it didn't matter. And then last year I went to, I'm not sure, 5 or 6 pounds. I think in the coming year I might go a little less. We'll see. Camelina is such a tiny seed, so it just you get like calibration can be tricky too, because if you got too big of a metering roller in there or whatever your seeding system is, it can flow out pretty damn easy too. So but I don't think you have to be too afraid if you put too much of it. It's not just because it's such a spindly, like they also call it false flax. It's such a spindly stand or stem. I mean, a skinny stem that it is. It's not going to just choke out the peas. So, and then fertilizer.
Yeah, sorry, that was my question. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So no nitrogen and basically a half rate of phos is what I would do. And herbicide is 0 in crop, just because the production contract that I had for the camelina asked for that. So I would go of a pre-seed burn off with glyphosate. And we would also go, sorry, that's wrong. In the fall time, burn off with glyphosate, and then in the springtime, go on with the Edge and the Harrow, and early, and seed into that, and then leave it alone. And actually, weed wise, that, or cleanliness of the field, that works out really good. And then on to harvest, or I guess fungicide. I didn't have any issues with Ascochyta. There was some mildewy looking stuff in the camelina, but I haven't used fungicides in years anyway, so I didn't worry about that. We went in with a fairly simple foliar package and tried to feed the plant some goodies that way. And then harvest time, I've done both straight cut and swath. And swath you got to be really careful with, because we had it happen this past season. It just, of course, it was that one night, right? One night, 4 days before harvest, that had been swathed for a little bit, and the thunder shower pops up out of nowhere, and like 2 minutes of 90-kilometer-an-hour winds, and it was gone. But anyway,
so was straight cutting an issue, Chris?
No, it wasn't, not at all. It's just then again the timing, right? Because camelina is a little earlier than peas, so I recommend getting the earliest pea variety that you can, and then camelina shells easily. So so that was kind of the reason why I decided to swath in the second year. Lay the camelina down so that it maybe doesn't shell as bad, and ripen up the green areas of peas, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that blowing was just BS. So yeah, I don't know if I would do that again. This earliest variety of peas, I think, is really important. I chose Meadows there last year. And then even crop emergence and all those regular things are going to go to help to even maturity, of course, right?
So what was separation like, Chris, and what did you see as far as percentages in the hopper?
Yeah, so the camelina guys there that definitely taught me what not to do and so on, and growing it. They said definitely put it with an intercrop, because camelina is so tiny, and the camelina shell is pretty much like a flax ball split in half, and the camelina seeds will literally collect in that shell and blow out the back of the combine, and you have tremendous losses. And you mix that with an intercrop, and the intercrop will help shake those seeds out of the pods in the shoe of the combine and have more seed go in your hopper. And so we've definitely witnessed the high losses for sure. You see lots of camelina on the ground, and it's just so tiny. I think it's going to take a lot of fiddling around with the settings to really get that down. But so that's one thing, but I can really see why the intercropping part helps with just getting the camelina in the hopper, and then separating is a breeze with the setup that I have there. I mean, you're literally talking the biggest size differences. I don't know, imaginable isn't the right word in the crop world, or the crops that we grow, but it's huge, right? Camelina is smaller than canola, and a pea is a pea. So that's a breeze. And
you could probably get away with running it through like a quick clean.
Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Yeah, and then of course camelina, small, tiny niche market, right? I hope that it's something that will develop, because I think it's a fantastic replacement oilseed crop, because of the fact that it doesn't have any issues with frost in the spring, huge ticket, and it doesn't have seem to not have any issues with flea beetles. So those are two great.
Another benefit is you've got it off early, and we can start talking about utilizing that season and that sunlight for plant diversity and keeping that biology 100%. Fed and stimulated.
Yep, exactly. And it actually regrows like a bugger on its own in the fall. Like this past year here, we had the wind blow at the swaths, and there was losses from that, and there was losses out the back of the combine, and my hired man and I were talking that we were going to get the seeder hooked up here. Let's do it tomorrow morning, and we're going to go out like right after harvest, right? We're going to go out and get cover crop sown in there. And then it rained like 3 inches overnight. I think it was actually closer to 5. So that kiboshed that plan. And but before you knew it, that field was pretty green again, because that little seed just needed a bit of moisture and the soil contact that it had, and boom, up it was. But then the PO, this is, like Darren said, this is my favorite so far. I've done it 3 years now with some larger acres, and in every one of those 3 years, it turned out to be my best net return. And if it wasn't the best, it would be the second best. And lots of bonuses to it, I believe. Biggest standouts are, again, those two crops, they just kind of seem to belong together, right? Early seed, early harvest. The crop gives off a really good vibe when you walk into it in the mid-June time frame. It's just so green and thick, and it looks really good. I always enjoy watching that one grow, and that's with really not much input, not much, like they grow easy, so and so that's a huge bonus. And then we don't go any nitrogen, we go a half rate of phos. I've done 0 phos, which funny enough was the year I had the best crop bushels wise, so I'm definitely tempted to try that again. And we go a foliar, foliar cocktail of nutrients in crop for sure.
How about seeding rates, Chris?
Yeah, so seeding rates were, again, this is a yellow pea. I've only ever done it with a yellow. Seeding rates were about 130, 140-ish on the peas, and about 40, 45 on the oats. When I initially started, I was just 10 to maybe 15 pounds lower on both. And I remember pulling into the field with a herbicide the first year I did it, and I was like, ooh, driving up and down, and there is not a lot here. Like, oh boy, I don't know how this is going to turn out. Yet again, that turned out to be the best yield that year. But again, every year's different, so on and so forth. So since then, I've just slightly ramped up the rates just to make up for pockets where, for whatever reason, the other two seeds around it didn't grow and things like that, just a little bit of insurance, if you will.
Chris, I know you've probably thought of this, and we're going to get to it in question period, but well, one, just quickly touch on your herbicide option here, what you use, and have you ever thought about increasing the diversity in this crop?
Yeah, so herbicide, again, I think huge in this is a really good burn off the fall prior. And then, because you can seed this one so early, if nothing is growing before you go out with the drill, well, then there's no reason to be spraying anything. So hopefully you can get it through. Like, I think if a person was able to, like, I run Seed Masters, so we have a seed row about that far apart, peas and oats roughly. But if you could get that spread even wider to cover more of the ground quicker, I think you would have a pretty good chance of just doing a good job of a burn off, and then early start, get the seed growing as early as possible, and cover that field up with green growing competition, wanted, like your wanted crop, before the weeds get a chance, right? That would definitely be the best.
Have you ever sprayed a herbicide on this crop, Chris?
Yes,
crop?
Yeah, you bet. So I done a Bazagran in crop, which, Bazagran is terribly expensive, and you've got to have just the perfect spraying weather, afternoon peak sun, heat, and lots of water. I've done a spring burn off with heat, and heat will have a 2-week window, which that has also bought me the time to not have to spray an in crop. And then another one I've done is MCPA amine in crop, but a reduced rate, because too much of a rate will kill the peas. So I've kind of tried 3 different things now in the 3 different years, and least happy was MCPA amine, because it will literally only get rid of like your volunteer canola, and I'm actually not even sure what other small broadleaves it might get at the stage that, or at the rate that I sprayed it. Bazagran, yeah, I've had good results, but it's expensive, and the best was honestly the year when I did a spring burn off with heat to get that 2-week
and then nothing in crop.
Nothing in crop, exactly. Yeah.
I've mentioned this on the a previous webinar about a researcher at Dauphin, and that's not right. So James, if you're watching, I apologize, but James Frey was doing oat vetch research, and a byproduct of the oat vetch research was he did herbicide trials on oats, literally just monocrop herbicide versus monocrop oats versus monocrop oats. One had a herbicide and what didn't. And his conclusion about the oat vetch was, I mean, yes, there was probably vetch providing nitrogen to that system, but the biggest effect on yield was not spraying the oats with a herbicide, having those oats photosynthesize right through herbicide time, where normally they're shut down, 3-4 days after a herbicide. And our biggest limiting factor is carbon or sunlight. So, that is very interesting.
I agree, Chris, for sure. And then another.
What happens if what would happen if you put camelina with this?
That's a good question. honestly never thought to try it. Should probably just do a small area of it for sure. I've never tried it. But one more point to the herbicide, one that's always known to get terrible injury from herbicide is peas, right?
Yes.
And one thing I learned through these few years of growing peas is a bit of a calcium product with the herbicide, like obviously the fulvic acid, right, and getting the pH right, but a bit of a calcium product has seemed to have had great results on managing the yellow flash, or not even having yellow flash in the peas. So that's one thing I definitely throw out there, no matter if it's monocrop or intercrop or whatever, right? But just a bit of calcium seems to help and that's an omics product, seems to help the peas metabolize the herbicide. So,
well, I definitely had issues in that. So sorry, we'll keep moving, man. We got to get to questions
yeah,
here sometime.
Yeah, for sure. So next slide, what do we got?
We got wheat faba.
Oh yeah, right on. So this, I've only got 1 year under my belt. And it's kind of a screw up. It's about 200 acres that I did, and like I think about 160 of those acres got 2/3 of the seeding rate that I actually wanted them to get. So I was shooting for 90 pounds of wheat and 120, I think, of fabas. You have to excuse me, I don't have my notes with me. And but long story short, all this crop got was a burn off in the fall prior. Then we treated the fabas with Eco Tea and liquid knock, and the wheat with Eco Tea, and we stuck it all in the ground. It was one of the first things I sowed, and basically just walked away from it and didn't need any in-crop herbicide. It literally just kept clean, which I'm still kind of baffled by that. So I haven't heard of any allelopathic effects of either faba or wheat, obviously, but it's something seemed to happen there that just kept it clean, even at a less than desirable seeding rate. So that alone really interests me to try this one again. And no nitrogen, just the half rate of phos. One thing I'll say to that is, as the season went on, you could see that wheat was hungry. So I think that a higher rate of fabas, fabas are such a huge fat seed, and so maybe I need to be closer to like 160 pounds in the fabas to get more of them out there and cause more of a supply of nitrogen for the wheat. And as usual, went through with the foliar that perked things up a bit, and then just left it and waited and finally harvested it. So there, for variety wise, I think it's important to choose a very late wheat variety, because fabas are such a late crop.
You straight cut this, Chris?
Yeah, we straight cut it, and one thing we were definitely keeping in the back of our mind was to swath it, perhaps. But then again, you always got weather in the back of your mind and stuff like that, and it just all of a sudden it was just ripe, and there wasn't really any wheat shelling going on yet, and we just mowed it down, and it ended up fine. And so yield wise, to be perfectly honest here, it wasn't that great of a result, but I also blame a fair bit of that on that super backed off seeding rate. Literally 33% less than what I desired. And so separation was very easy in my setup that we'll talk about next. But back to the actual outcome of the crop, in that area where the seeding rate was right. I haven't actually looked at the yield maps yet, but there was definitely more grain coming in, and overall you could just tell there was more biomass, there was more heads, more pods, more everything. So naturally you're going to get bigger yield, right? So I'm excited for this one because down the road, because I think a faba bean is going to fit great in with a lot of pea acres.
Yeah.
I heard that guy was doing faba bean and pea intercrop, and there was no ascochyta to be found in that pea mix in the intercrop when the fabas were present. So is there potentially something in the fabas that doesn't allow the ascochyta fungus to exist? You know, just like in the pea oat, I heard this winter in a couple of different places that the ascochyta fungi doesn't like a certain exudate that the oat root produces. So, you know, those are, you know, just more benefits of these intercrops for sure. But and then the other benefits of fabas that guys talk about, right? The big tap root and the fact that it fixes more N at 10 C than at 20 degrees C. So yeah, so just a bit of diversity in the legume department, I guess.
Well, and like from my standpoint, I've run out of acres I can grow peas on, and I mean, a common theme from tonight is, I mean, peas are a nice intercrop. So yeah, it's definitely going to have to be something in my future for sure.
Right.
Sorry, Chris, we got questions piling up. Why don't we you get to chat about your system as far as separation, and yeah, we'll get into some of these questions.
Sure, sounds good. So just like Darren, I bought that a Garrett vibratory table first, and started out with just that. That was a very primitive setup. And long story short, this here is the separation station 3.0. So we've got a scalper aspirator sitting right above the feeding end basically of the vibratory table, and so the aspirator just takes out the lights and dust basically. And but the biggest aspect of it really is it feeds the vibratory table evenly, and you can regulate the flow. I was always struggling with that before. And yeah, and then the crop comes across, and then obviously that auger on the right takes away the either oat crop or camelina or whatever, or wheat, and the leg on the left is for peas. So at this current state here, the way we had it set up this fall, we were about, call it 7.5 ton metric ton an hour, like of both separated products, or 90 tons in a 12-hour shift. So I was more than happy with that result. And we're basically achieving like 1 to at best at most 2% of split peas in the oats, and I'm not having really any issues marketing that. In the 3 years of separating, I had one time or one buyer, actually this past fall in harvest time when they needed oats, it was no problem. The pea splits in there, and then in December all of a sudden they didn't need them as bad, right? So then they weren't happy with that. So but that's literally the only time I've had an issue. And yeah, so it's a sound system, and I'll definitely just kind of keep tinkering away at it with automation and things like that to fine tune it a bit down the road, and integration into my grain handling system and so stuff like that. But that's about it.
Chris, do you separate as needed, or like when you're hauling the elevator, or do you separate just you got a month of downtime and put all the product through?
So this year here, the goal was to get to a point where we separate as we harvest, because that then helps with the final storage the most, right? If you're having to store an intercrop, a mixed intercrop, that's just another new or different kind of crop besides your wheat, your canola, and your barley and everything, you know. So plus you can't haul it to the elevator. So as soon as you got it separated, some of your contracts can be filled, right? And so that's definitely the goal, is to separate as we harvest. And we got there this fall, we were doing that, and we were basically done separating. We had, I think, like 2,500 metric tons chased through that outfit this year by the time we were done combining. So that's worked well.
Product. Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. So
all right, well, great job, bud. You're coming back right away for question period. I just wanted to go through quickly, just for the crew that's still on, and there seems to be a pile, so we'll get to some of your questions here. Just wanted to touch on some quick intercropping, which we do on our farm for forage production instead of actually separating two crops. So I just wanted to run through it quickly. We had some requests earlier in the day. Pea canola, we've talked about, of course, what we do at our place, and is getting to be a little bit more of a commonly used practice, is the adding red clover. So we have the same herbicide options. Of course, we're dealing in another legume, which doesn't necessarily fit our carbon to nitrogen needs, but it keeps the plant growing, it keeps energy flow going into the soil, keeps the biology fed, and then that red clover, the goal is it's going to break down for next year's cereal crop. So it did not work this year. 2021 was a tough year on red clover. We didn't see a lot of acres produce actually red clover come fall. It was just too dry. It germinated, it got 40-degree heat, and it ran out of moisture. But I think it's a really good practice, and for a cattle farm, it's an absolute no-brainer. If we're already doing a canola or a pea, even monocrop. Something I talk about lots is the corn hairy vetch. I won't spend a ton of time because I talk about it so much, but really, really easy crop to implement. Same herbicide practices, same fertilizer practices. Maybe we can, start to reduce them. And the grazing benefit come fall with the large amounts of corn biomass and hairy vetch biomass. It makes perfect cattle feed. And we don't have to feed those months of November, December. 100 grazing days per 100 cows grazing per acre per day, which is very easily achievable in corn and hairy vetch. At $3 a cow a day, which is our feed cost, that's $300 an acre. Tough to find a more profitable intercrop than that one right here. And something just really, really easy we can do is something as simple as putting Italian ryegrass with oats. Get the same herbicide options. We practices virtually stay the same, other than we're just mixing another seed in, and we can see some results that look like this, where we get fall rain or precipitation in the months of August and September, and that Italian ryegrass, it just keeps growing and growing and growing. We don't have to worry about volunteers. It heading out, it stays in reproduction, very vegetative for animals. And, we don't need a whole bunch of grazing days to even just pay for, 6 or 8 pounds an acre of Italian ryegrass sown under oats. And we don't have to change our management practices. These are just some really easy to implement ideas as far as intercrops if we're looking to extend grazing seasons and added forage on the farm. So now we're going to get into question period. The first question I want to ask our panelists, I'm actually going to answer first because I had some time to prepare a slide here, which is, what are you excited to try in the future? What's an intercrop you've been thinking about? Doesn't have to be grown this year, but what's an idea that you like in the future that you want to find some answers for or find some solutions for by putting on your farm? So I did this one a few years back, and it was a bloody disaster. It was soybeans on 30 inches. And then I went back a month after sowing the soybeans with millet. So the idea was I could get a pre-emergence burn off on the soybeans, sow the soybeans, get another herbicide pass in, or sow the millet, And in the 5 to 6 days of germination, we can get another herbicide pass in, and then everything just grows together. Big soybean seed versus small millet seed. It was going to be very easy to separate with a quick clean. The millet was going to clean up any excess nitrogen from the soybeans. We were creating different sunlight hierarchies. I thought what a fantastic idea, but I messed up herbicide timing. And in 2019, we had 3 feet of snow on October 9th, I think, and virtually lost the millet crop. But anyway, this is what it looked like when we got it all separated out. It was simple to separate. And I honestly didn't think we were going to try it again so soon, but with the price of fertilizer, and I really like this idea of wide rows with the soybeans and maximizing our sunlight canopy with different layers, and the sigmoid curve, having sunlight access, all sides of that soybean plant, that we can, hopefully grow 2/3 of the soybean crop and 2/3 of a millet crop at reduced inputs, so we get higher gross return and lower risk. So guys, if you want to take your cameras off, Dan, hopefully you're still with us. Turn your microphones on. We've got a whole bunch of questions to get through, but I promised you, the first thing we do is kind of a creative and exciting part, which is what you're thinking about for the future. So maybe we'll start with Darren, and then Chris, and then Dan. Darren, what's an intercrop you're excited about for the future, you want to try, and kind of what your goals would be doing it? So yeah, you guys can work off what Darren says, but Darren, have at it. What are you excited about for the future as far as intercropping?
Well, I guess, yeah, kind of thinking about it, I couldn't really come up with something new, but I'm going to kind of cheat the way you did about saying something that I have tried before that I kind of totally forgot about when preparing this. Was actually my first intercrop attempt was soybeans and canola, which did pan out half decent the first time I tried it. Tried it again a second time, and it wasn't as good. Pod shatter on the canola was the big issue, because the maturities, I was amazed, actually did line up not terrible. They weren't perfect, but they were close. It was just, yeah, at the time I had a Roundup Ready canola, so pod shatter wasn't very good on it, even though it was supposed to be a pod shatter variety. So I've always thought about trying it again. We've got the chance, maybe more so now that we have the or some soybean varieties that are Liberty tolerant, so we could go for the Liberty Link canolas to go with them. So that's one kind of on my radar again. We'll see when it happens. I don't know.
Cool, Chris. I'm sure I'm going to give you a 2 minute. I'm going to give you a 2 minute time limit.
Okay.
Because I'm sure you have some ideas.
I was wondering about flax and faba. Both of them are late harvested, and again, I think it would be pretty interesting if you could nail it with the not in the same row, not too close together, but much of a row spread as possible to try to because both of them grow quite upright. I understand that so fabas are tall, first of all, but then I understand that flax will stretch immensely along with its intercrop partner. So then if you can do an alternate row thing, even, or whatever, obviously try the easiest thing, same row, but that's one I was thinking, and mostly I think the harvest windows would marry up pretty well. I literally just kind of put that one down to paper when earlier in the pre-meeting there, when you said you were gonna quiz us. So I thought that was as much out of the bag as I could think of. And then what you guys talked about here a couple of meetings ago with oats and vetch, that one sounds pretty intriguing. I haven't tried it. I know lots of other guys have. So yeah, I still got a bag of vetch seed in the barn, and I think actually we've talked about it too. So I think we'll give that one a try. So
I think it's a good idea.
I just don't want to buy any. What does flaxseed cost nowadays?
God only knows. I'm going to buy flaxseed. Hopefully, come harvest, my crop will produce the flaxseed back at very best.
Yeah.
My expectations are not high.
And that was something I was thinking about earlier, Darren, when you were talking and you were speaking of your wheat flax being a disaster, but really the only disaster was that it was only 5 bushels of flax, right? But I mean, if that secures your seed production for a couple of years out and something crazy like this happens where seed price of flax goes up, isn't it like $40 a bushel or something?
For dirty.
I guess, the 5 bushels of flax was the big success. It was this year we were well under a bushel an acre worth of flax out of it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So yeah, this year, even with the price, I don't know if it was economical to separate in the end, but yeah, that first year at 5 bushels, I was ecstatic at that.
Yeah.
Dan, let's hear your crazy ideas for the future.
Well, I think I come at it from just a slightly different angle, or maybe I don't, but I guess I keep, like everybody else in the call, a pretty detailed cost of production, and pea oats sounds really sexy to me, but those are my 2 most profitable crops monocrop wise, and they're kind of paying the bills. And over the last 10 years, wheat's been an absolute dog. So I was trying to come up with an intercrop that would just replace wheat. So it would have to be kind of high carbon or cereal or I don't know what, but it would be something that replaces wheat in the rotation. When I talk about system, I'm looking at this rye vetch thing I did and go, how can I turn this into like a 3-year kind of continuous relay where if the vetch hangs in there, I can just grow 3 crops decently, like you said, 2/3 or whatever it is, half a crop, and grow vetch 3 years in a row in there, and then see what. Yeah, I'm always thinking about the dollar signs and profitability, but along the way, like I can already put a shovel in that field, and it's completely different than my bordering field that I've farmed and treated differently. So hidden in there, is I maybe won't admit it, as I'm thinking about all those regenerative ag things, but how I can make money at it. I think I'm just trying to, for now, clean up that wheat in the rotation and try and be more profitable. So what am I going to try? I think I alluded to it. We did the rye vetch, probably canola vetch. And then if it continues again, then like I said, it seems to me that vetch and perennial ryegrass would fit together pretty good, but maybe someone will tell me I'm an idiot there too. But
that was my dream, man. It still looks really good on paper. It just didn't happen to work out for me that specific year. So somebody should do it and have good success with it, because I think they're a match made in heaven, personally. I'll add one more thing. I know I started with the soybean batch, but I was very fortunate in my line of work now. I get calls from all sorts of curious farms from all over Western Canada or even just Canada. And I talked to a guy from north of Edmonton, and his name is escaping me. But he had done the pea oat intercrop for a while, had really good success with it. But he took it one step further this past year, and he added flax, canola, and one other thing. I can't remember what it was, but it literally doubled the profitability on the same amount of acres, because he wasn't going to spray with a herbicide anyway. He was seeding it, relatively early. I don't think he had a weed issue, but like the plan definitely wasn't going to be you were ever going to go in there with a herbicide. And he ended up with something like 5 bushels of flax and 6 bushels of canola. Well, if canola is worth $8 and flax is worth 10, that's probably not worth it. But in a year where flax is worth 40 and canola is worth 25, well, now you got 10 bushels of that combination at somewhere between, $300 and $400. Well, shit, that's, that probably didn't cost you anything as far as yield on the other crops, but you're adding, you're taking grossing $300 or $400 an acre more, and your only cost. And yes, it would be a pain in the ass. And yes, there would be, trucking costs and time and cleaning costs, but now you got $300 an acre to work with, just throwing in some of these high value seeds. So I think, and the advantage I have on my farm is I have cows. So if I have a complete wreck and it's wild oats or comes up, Roundup resistant kochia, I can, worst case, I can put it in a bale. But I think there really is some potential with, instead of just the 2 crops. I mean, that's scary enough as far as separation, but you start talking about 3, 4, 5, but mixing in some of these crazy high value niche crops that's not going to cost you anything, but actually extensively add to the bottom line because it's not costing you anything in such a high value crop. I think there's some really crazy potential with that in the future. So anyway, guys, we're going to follow on to the next one. I think I warned you all about this one, that this was going to be asked. So we'll go in reverse order. Is crop insurance. What does it look like for these intercrops as far as crop insurance? So Dan, we'll start with you, then Chris, then Darren. And of course, I've been doing this for long enough that I have had both positive and negative experiences with crop insurance. So Dan, what are you doing, or what did you do with the rye vetch, and what is kind of your plan for the future as far as crop insurance?
Is this going to be like on YouTube forever? My answer?
Yes. You can pass.
I didn't think there was going to be any vetch there, so I just insured a rye crop. But
yeah,
coverage was still horse shit. So
I agree.
Yeah. The novel crop things, I think you steered me away from it, but I mean, everything else did really good. So I don't think we would have got paid out anyways. Like we had some of that German millet too. And yeah, by the way they explained it, we wouldn't have paid out. So we just had I don't know if we had a crappy year with really good prices. So we still had a pretty good year. But all these things that we're talking about is, we should have this webinar after a terrible year when it was wet and crappy and gross, because this is kind of the stuff that I like. This is where it'll shine. Like in a good year, we could basically take a bag of rice and throw it out there and it would turn to gold, right? So but I called about that polycrop insurance to see, but that's more if you're throwing in like a really big mix, I guess. And it's like if nothing grows, you get paid. And so I was kind of hoping that would be, well, if I'm growing pea oat and oats don't make it, do you get paid or whatever? And that's not how that works. So that doesn't fit either. So you got, it's not there. Unless, I don't know if anyone's ever looked at like global ag risk, where you insure your bottom line or something like that, if that would qualify.
Well, you brought that up to me. That's kind of, I was leading you to that. I didn't know if you'd looked into that anymore, Dan. I know I haven't. I'm actively trying to get my farm to a financial state where I can both give the government and FCC and my lenders the middle finger and say I'm doing this on my own. I think that's going to be a great thing.
Good plan.
No, I didn't follow up on it. But I think as long as you meet certain criteria and your farm is sound, I think you can do whatever you want. But someone on the call will know better than me.
Yeah, literally, we got that. We have looked into GRS and premiums are crazy high. So anyway, Chris, how about you? You've been doing this a while.
I think that pea oat's fine. You can insure it, but everything else, just don't mention it. Just talk about the main crop in it. So that would be the pea or the wheat. In those other 2 intercrops there, and just keep it simple. Keep it as that. I did make the mistake once of mentioning it and like pea camelina, and then no, we can't insure it because the camelina is in there, but so why mention it, right? I'm sure this whatever, this will get held against me or something, but I don't know. That's my
nobody watches these, Chris.
Right. yeah
Darren?
Yeah, so if you're in doubt, just carry on with life, and
Darren?
that's
I guess on a lot of my mixes haven't been insuring them just because there isn't really a good insurance option on them. Going a little with the thought of some of the sort of self-insuring because of, like the example of the peas drowning out with the oats surviving. I know I did do on the rye vetch, insure it as rye, and did have a claim and kind of got told I'm not supposed to do that. So it's, yeah. In the future, I guess I've used up my get out of jail free on that one card. So it's, yeah, a lot of these, I know that is a concern, is insurance, but yeah, a lot of hoping that they are kind of self-insuring.
So I've got pretty similar experience to you guys. I don't have a whole pile of use for novel crop insurance. They've never paid me $1, and I've had lots of things go haywire from time to time, or just the experiment. But I have found one loophole, and if I don't shut up about it, they're going to close that loophole tight. But if you're doing an intercrop and you insure or you pick a main cash crop and say I'm insuring the or establishing a forage. So if you're allowed to establish a forage and they don't dock you on your intercrop as a weed. And that is literally what we do on our farm. 90% of our intercrops are done for grazing forage. So I'm glad that's something that exists. I'm glad I now know about it and can take advantage of it. I hope it's around for a long time, because it seems like such an easy, natural step for crop insurance to take to make some of these intercrops more palatable and digestible to the mainstream, and not just the true believers. So that is something, and I would say when in doubt, just ask your MASC representative if that's an option for you. But ours in our area has been really helpful, and it's amazing when you get somebody that wants to work with you versus just wants to follow a playbook, and that's that no matter what. They're not going to bend or flex at all. So yeah, I would say be open and honest, or back in the BSE days in cattle, we used to say shoot, shovel, and shut the hell up. So that's a route to go to.
I'm glad you said that, Joe, because I thought you said you were gonna say get cows, and I don't want to do that. So
no, I wouldn't put anyone through that, especially my friends. Yeah, so guys, we'll go through, we're getting kind of late here, so we'll go just a couple questions. We got some intercrop ideas. What do you think about soybean flax or German millet? Want to figure out something to grow with soybeans. So I guess I can start, because I talked about the 30-inch soybeans. There are some definite challenges. Herbicide timing, seeding the millet timing, getting a millet that lines up, getting a soybean that lines up, late harvest. With that being said, and this is Chris Seymour that said this, but it's I am most excited about it. I think you can establish soybeans on 30-inch, go back in not only with millet, but you can really increase the diversity. You can go in with millet, Italian ryegrass, some clovers, some vetch, as much diversity as you want, really, because that crop is not going to be hit with a herbicide after the fact. I think there's some really, really, really good potential with that without getting in too deep. I'm sure lots of people on here have heard of Jason Mock, and he talks about the sigmoid curve and actually getting plants to reach their full potential based on sunlight. So on 30-inch rows with soybeans, we can both capture that sigmoid curve, but also grow plants and establish plants between the rows. I think that is such a good idea. I don't know, Darren, do you even grow soybeans? I don't want to put you in a spot. But...
yeah, I've grown them. I'm not really loving them. I guess the one thing I'll add on intercropping with soybeans is, remember, soybean can be an allergen. So if you're harvesting something else with them, be aware of like soybean chips. If you can't get them out, that could become a big concern for buyers.
For sure. Chris, how about you?
I just wanted to say, hasn't Alex tried that one? I think I remember him talking about that.
The like soybeans millet?
No, soy flax.
I am not sure. If Alex is on here, he can comment. But yeah, I mean, is it Elaine Ingham, you guys, that has been talking? She was on a few webinars this winter talking about, well, I think it was flax with virtually anything that's mycorrhizal dependent, where stimulating that hyphae network by putting in the most mycorrhizal dependent plant we have will always pay back positive dividends, because even if you don't get zero yield off the flax, Darren, it's what's so interesting about your wheat flax, which is, what affected the flax on the mycorrhizal fungal network, help stimulating that network affect the wheat yield. Like
that first year we had sap tests done on it, and the wheat in the intercrop, everything came back more balanced versus the monocrop wheat.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Dan, how about you? You grow soybeans. You must be wanting to intercrop some of those.
I traded soybeans in for peas a long time ago and haven't looked back. I actually have no experience with that in any way, but I will say this with my experience with soybeans is you don't really pick a target yield with soybeans. You just put them in the ground, and at the end of the year you go curling and everyone had the same yield. And the interesting thing is, we're seeding at guys are seeding up to 220,000 plants when really all you need is a uniform 120 maybe. And they go on as wide as 30-inch rows or 7-inch rows. There's just a ton of wasted space. So to me, it feels like we're not going to double our soybean yield very quickly. So if you can tuck something in there and squeeze a couple bushels of anything else in the mid row, it's to me, there's lots of room for that to happen. The other thing I'll comment on is we're always trying to seed them early because they take longer to mature, and they do take forever to establish. They can sit in the ground forever, but whenever you spill a pile of soybeans or there's a few weeds or something, be it wild oats or whatever in a patch, that competition within that bean, the beans just respond to that like crazy and go bananas. Quickly they get out competed and do worse, but there would be a fine line there. So if you could figure out how to have something with the seed to help it get out of the ground quicker and be better, I think there's a ton of opportunity there. I have no experience with it, but I think it's a no-brainer to try to figure that out. It's got to be there, if that helps.
Good answer, guys. We got one question here we did not address at all tonight. And I think it is really important, which is seeding depth. So we got different size seeds. What are we aiming for as far as seeding depth? Are we putting both down the same chute or side banding? Kind of what you see and what you're aiming for as far as seed depth when you're sowing two crops of varying seed sizes. So we'll do it a little different. Chris, Dan, Darren.
Okay. So again, I use Seed Masters. So you've got the fert knife and the seed knife. And so clearly put the peas down with the fert knife always, and the oats or camelina down the seed knife, the shallower one. Same with wheat faba down the deep one, wheat down the shallower one.
Chris, we actually have a very specific question for you, which is how deep does the camelina go?
Shallow, like canola. But those Saskatchewan guys also told me in the first year that it grows like stinkweed or grows like a weed. And so therefore maybe just up the seeding rate a little bit in case you're putting it a bit deeper, and then you get a better chance, but so yeah, that's what I do. And while these other two guys were talking about flax there, I was actually thinking in the wheat flax thing, I heard years ago from a flax farmer up in my neck of the woods. He was blowing a portion of his flax seeding rate on with a Valmar setup on the front of his drill, and then putting the other portion of the flax seed down the seed shanks. And he had the best results with that, because like this obviously monocrop flax. best result with that because he finally got a covering and just more chance of a flax, establishment on the ground against weeds and so on. So I was just thinking while you guys were talking, maybe that's something to try with a flax intercrop, so like flax wheat or whatever. Or sorry, what was I talking? Flax faba before. Get a sort of a coating on the ground, a good covering, even covering of that tiny flax seed, and then you have the odd big faba plant come up in there. But yeah, as far as seeding tools and depths and stuff, that's my deal. And then I don't get too fancy. I more or less leave them all at that cereal type of seeding level and just go for it. And it always works out fine.
Dan?
I got a disc drill, so it's got a 1/4-inch opener. When there's a whole bunch of seeds in that row, I think you can get away with seeding deeper. I think there's a limit. Don't go to 3 inches or whatever, but I'm not too worried if you're seeding a small seed down an inch or more. If it's dry, and I mean, if it's wet, anything works at depth, but going back to corn and having brace roots, you gotta be deep enough. I think there's some truth to stuff like that with all those crops. So if you can get away with being a touch deeper, I don't think it hurts as long as it comes out.
Darren?
Yeah, generally I'm thinking with the small seeded with something that's big seeded. I'm the disc drill, same drill as Dan even. And yeah, so that small seed usually with the big one helps it come up a little, breaks the way. So you can usually go a little deeper than you normally would for the small seed, and yeah, hit some moisture and kind of make the compromise, and it seems to work.
What kind of drills do you guys have then?
Borgo 3720.
Oh yeah.
That's
And
10-inch spacing.
Just to speak on my experience, I never had an issue with, like, we had a I mean, we upgraded one of our drills this year, but we had an old 8800 Borgo, so it's all going down the same chute. It's 3/4-inch openers. Never had an issue with germination, never had a problem with anything coming up until 2021, and we were fishing for moisture 2 inches down, and we saw a lot of problems that I wouldn't have said otherwise would have existed. But I mean, to a certain extent, yeah, I'm a firm believer of the big seeds making a crack for the smaller seeds to come up, and I've seen it happen time and time again. But there's a limit to it for sure, and I think that limit is probably 1 3/4 to 2 inches down, based on, I mean, different soil types and conditions, of course. But we did see some pretty shitty germination in some small seeded stuff, grass seed, lots of, like the oats Italian ryegrass for sure. It doesn't do that good when you sink it in the ground 2 inches. Anyway, guys, we are well over time. The last thing I wanted to do, we've been doing the last few times, and I think it's a really good exercise. Final thoughts. So if there's anything I missed, if there's anything you want to add, if there's something that is, plain advice you want to give to somebody who's been on the webinar tonight, doesn't know anything about intercropping or cover cropping, but it's something important you think that they should know, now's the time. So if you got any last thoughts at all, now's the time to do it. So we'll go Darren, Chris, Dan. We've switched orders a bit here, but anyway, have at it, Darren. What's your final thoughts on intercropping? What can you add?
Yes, yeah. If you're thinking about intercropping, kind of make sure you've got some sort of a plan in place for separation. That a lot of people I know do run into I got a plan and then it changes. So yeah, have something planned there. But otherwise, yeah, if you're interested, give it a try. If you're nervous, try small.
Good advice. Chris?
First of all, can you still hear me?
Yeah, you got it. Loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. So I think that let's all just keep trying, keep being creative. You guys at Covers and Co, you're doing an awesome job with this, with these meetings. You're bringing minds together and people together and sharing ideas. That's the most important thing. We've got to, as farmers, continue to get creative. Like, look at the situation going on in the world currently. Sources are going to become a bigger issue as time goes on. Phosphate fertilizer being shipped around the world, nitrogen and being made from natural gas, or the energy source of blah blah blah, all these things, transport and so on. And we have to come up with better ways to grow crops. And like you said earlier on, what is the easiest way to not buy nitrogen fertilizer is put a legume in the ground and pair that with a cereal or something, and you're growing a cereal without buying nitrogen fertilizer, right? So let's just all keep sharing ideas and staying creative, and I think that's the way forward.
Great answer, Chris. Dan, you get the final words. No, you don't. Of course, I get the final word. You get the second last word.
Echo the boys' statements. I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for the guys at Covers and Co. And you guys are kind of making the pie bigger, bringing people together. That kind of gives you a bit of confidence to do stuff. But I guess what I would say is, because it's crazy to do anything different than what we're already doing. If you took some time and wrote down 5 things that make your farm really successful and 5 things that make your farm less successful or that you struggle with, and you looked at those and you thought about those things that you struggle with, be it canola and flea beetles, be it getting soybeans out of the ground, things we talked about, there might be a fit for trying something different. And I'm not saying it's an intercrop, but why not? That's all I got.
Well said, Dan. And I guess my final thought would be, it's going to reiterate a lot of what the guys said, but this stuff is so much easier with the community. I mean, you can do all the damn researching you want online and come up with an exact plan of seeding rates, and this is how I'm going to harvest, and this is what I'm going to spray with. And then you're going to get punched in the face because conditions are different every year. The most important thing is talk to the farms that have done it, create a social network based on people with similar interests as you, because they have the same mindset and the same thought process as you. And I mean, just from a human standpoint, having a support group is so damn important, because some days are tough and you want to hear, I love that I can pick up the phone and I can call Chris and say, hey, this intercrop was horrendously bad. And he can be like, well, guess what? I got one that was even worse than that. Like sometimes, I don't wish that on anyone, but sometimes it's just so important from a human standpoint to hear, hey, we're all trying to learn things and this information doesn't exist. So, why don't we work together, share each other's ideas? These are all fundamentally sound ideas. I know they're correct because Mother Nature had 400 million years of evolution doing it this way. So it's like, absorb as much information as you can. I hope that there's value being gotten from these webinars, and try and create a group so you don't have to make all these painful failures, on your own. You can find out how I screwed up so badly on soybeans and millet, and I'm still excited about it because I knew I screwed up and here's where I went wrong. And, maybe I can have good results and somebody out there listening can too. So it's really about networking, understanding, and sharing really good ideas. Anyway, guys, this was another fantastic webinar. Thanks everyone for staying on. And you guys did an excellent job. A lot of good questions. And until next time, we'll see you guys in a couple weeks. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Peace
guys.
out.
Catch you later.